Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Extreme Fantasy Junkies. Hope you all had a great weekend. Wow, what can I say about this weekend? Ups and downs, high-scoring games, disappointments, and why?
Keep it on, keep it on, keep it on, keep it on, keep.
Johnny, the one game that really got me thinking, if you had Vincent Jackson, okay, good. Green Bay and San Diego.
Cool. So yeah, Green Bay, San Diego. Oh, first time Aaron Rodgers is going to face the Chargers defense. And what do you guys, well, obviously you guys know what happened. I'm just going to brief you guys on this. Obviously Philip Rivers had a good game. Well, not a good game, however you want to consider it. But from the yardage point and from the touchdown point, he had a good game. Interception to touchdown ratio, not so much. His completion to attempts to completion percentage rather, not so good either. Obviously Rodgers had what most would say the better game. He had 4 TDs, no interceptions, and he's keeping that streak alive. Good job, Aaron. And it looks like they got buddy at the end of the game too, so maybe they'll be Twitter friends. But like you mentioned, Vincent Jackson, great game if you started in fantasy like I did and you did. Yeah, so it was good. It was good. At that point I blew out that owner. I feel bad for him, but some points I want to touch on real quick. You know, Green Bay got the win, and that was kind of the most important thing for Green Bay to take out of this game, especially facing a team like the Chargers for the first time. Rodgers was told he was going to be tested, but it looked like he wasn't. One bad spot I want to touch on real quick, they allowed too much offense on the Chargers side, and I mean they had the 2 TDs by Pepper, which was nice, especially changing the games from the pads to the packs. And then, yeah, Pepper had a good spot. But other than that, that defense is, you know, I honestly think that it's, like you said, they're looking like the 2007 Pats. And that kind of worries me because I think there is a team that will test them. And I think that team will be the Eagles. But, yeah, you know, basically Green Bay right now, they're on a roll. Let's see how long this roll lasts, though.
Next game I want to get to, actually, we actually considered it as a Super Bowl prediction. It was last week, if I remember. Pittsburgh and Baltimore, Jeff.
No, it wasn't a Super Bowl prediction. It was either one of those 2 teams.
One of those two would
represent the AFC in the Super Bowl.
Wait a minute.
I'm sorry about that.
Eat it. Everybody,
eating the humble pie right now.
I gotta eat the humble pie because I put
Just brings me to one of my good trademarks. John, I told you so.
Say it again for the
I
people.
told you so. I told him so. And if you thought the Steelers were going to win, I thought you so. Well, enough with that. Let's get down to the action. I mean, if you watch the game, both teams virtually played identical. You got Flacco going 28 for 47, 300 yards, 1 touchdown. You got Roethlisberger going 20 out of 37, 330 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Nice pick by Terrell Suggs, by the way. I just like to mention that. I had mentioned last week who I thought the difference maker was going to be. It was going to be the defense and the fact that the Ravens had a dynamic play like Ray Rice. Ray Rice carrying the ball 18 times for 43 yards and a touchdown. About to be outshined. Mendenhall had 13 carries for 52 yards, 1 touchdown. I'm going to go down to what really won Ravens the game, and that's giving themselves a chance to do it. Joe Flacco, who was being criticized all season long as a guy who couldn't come through, finally came through when given the chance. He sliced apart on that final drive the best pass defense in the NFL in the Steelers. He got himself the win. The defense stuck around, gave Roethlisberger problems. Joe Flacco put the ball on the ground, was able to redeem himself. I mean, really, it was a great game to watch. It was 2 AFC heavyweights going blow for blow. 2 great defenses going blow for blow.
last and final game. Obviously, Mikey's gonna get it. Mike C. 2 names. Got Tim Tebow and Carson Palmer.
That's right.
Denver and Oakland.
And now, I know you guys know that we are all very torn on Tebow. John is not sold on Tebow. Jeff is not sold on Tebow. And after last week's performance against a good Detroit Lions defense, you know, I kind of had my doubts too. John Fox backed him up though. He kept him in as a starter, changed the offensive system around a little bit. They were running a lot of option plays, which he was very familiar with, obviously, in Florida. He rushed for over 100 yards, 117 yards to be exact. He threw for 124 yards, had 2 TDs. Fantasy-wise, that's 25 points. Look at his stats so far for the season, and he's averaging 20 points per week. That's pretty good for a QB whose accuracy is below average and who really isn't comfortable in a pro system just yet. He also had Willis McGahee backing him up for a career high 163 yards and 2 long TDs, 299 yards on the ground against a Raiders team that was supposed to be taking the division over by storm. That division is up for grabs right now. The Raiders might not be in good shape, but fortunately for them, Carson Palmer, his first game as a starter, had over 312 yards and 3 TDs. He hasn't played in over a year, so to be pretty rusty and to come in and throw 3 TDs and over 300 yards, I think is really impressive. Could he lead them to the playoffs in that weak division? I think so going forward. Carson Palmer is going to be a good player for you. It was a great game, and I love rubbing it in John's face. Tebow killed it this week, and I beat John this week in a one-on-one matchup thanks to Tim Tebow.
I had Aaron Rodgers.
And he still lost.
Yeah.
Whatever.
More humble pie.
Yeah.
He's not full yet.
I know.
He's not full. Wait till we get to the smack talk. We're gonna
Wait till we get
bring
to the waiver wire. I'll get
more
my
humble
bracket
pies
rights.
out here for him to eat.
Yeah. Wait till we get to the waiver wire. I'll get my bracket rights.
I've been kind of quiet tonight. Maybe it's some humble pie that when we get back, studs and duds. Who's the stud and who's the dud? But be nice to the duds, though. You know they deserve some love too, man. Come on. We got studs and duds. Now I gotta find out between you two boys who's getting the studs and who's getting the duds. Jeffrey, you got the studs this week. What's good?
All right, I'm gonna take over the studs this week. You know, there's definitely some high shining superstars this week. I'm gonna start off first with a man that we've talked about before. Mike has mentioned as a must pick up. I like him. I've also picked him up in 2 of my leagues. DeMarco Murray seems to be doing everything right. He has 139 yards on 22 attempts. I mean, he doesn't get that many touches, but he makes the most out of every touch he gets. Dating back to last week, I mean, 22 is a respectable number, but 22 is a respectable number, and it needs a touchdown with it. Come on, Dallas, you're killing me. This guy's doing everything for you. Reward the guy. Let him bang it in instead of trying to force it with Romo. I'd like to go now to Vincent Jackson. I mean, hands down.
Yeah!
V-Jax, 141 yards on 7 receptions, 3 touchdowns. I mean, the huge reason why the Chargers were in the game until the final drive. Vincent Jackson, I mean,
he won a lot of games for a lot of fantasy.
He won a lot of games.
Single-handedly.
Unfortunately, due to injuries, I lost out on that game. I don't even want to talk about that. Anyway, somebody we mentioned earlier, you know, I just like to give him a little quick shout out, Carson Palmer. Fantasy speaking, he definitely gave you some points. He did throw 3 interceptions, but like Eli Manning of last year, if you're throwing 3 interceptions and you throw 3 touchdowns, you're still in the clear. He had 332 yards, 19 out of 35, respectable fantasy numbers, good top performer. Let's talk about Willis McGahee, going for 163 yards, 2 touchdowns on 20 attempts, but slash, because I want to just talk about the whole Denver rushing game. You guessed it, Tim Tebow.
The dynamic.
100-yard rusher, first quarterback this season to rush for 100 yards.
First quarterback in franchise history since 1943? I
believe.
1943. First, that's John Elway, and I can't even name who else they've had because it's only been John Elway.
Who else has Denver had?
Jeff, you led me right into the first guy I want to talk about. No Show Moreno. I drafted you as my 3rd running back, and you only had 8 total yards for 1 fantasy point. You were supposed to be the starting back. You were supposed to be the dynamic back out of Georgia that was going to lead Denver to Super Bowls, and you're getting outperformed by Willis McGahee. He was supposed to be on the back end of his career. What's going on, man? You're killing all of us. He was definitely, and has been so far for the whole season, the biggest dud of the season. Another guy, Owen Daniels. This guy, I think he might be a little overhyped. Honestly, if he doesn't have a healthy Andre Johnson, he's not producing. Look at the stats, it backs it up. Andre Johnson has been out for a whole month now, 5 weeks. Last week, Daniels only was able to produce 3 catches for 32 yards. He's being outperformed by the number 2 tight end on that team, and Joel Dreesen, nearly every week. Don't start this guy, and I'll get into that later because I do not like Owen Daniels for this upcoming week. Vernon Davis, another tight end, disappointed. 4 catches for 41 yards, no TDs, no red zone targets. Very disappointing. Ryan Terrain was benched for Roy Alou. We all know how Mike Shanahan is. He's very up in the air. Next week, Terrain might be a stud, but this week he only had 2 yards, I should say, on the ground and 1 catch for 7 yards. If you started him, you probably lost. Let's just be real. You probably lost. And then lastly, Matt Castle against the Miami Dolphins. Not only do you get blown out at home, but you only have 253 yards and you can't manage to get 1 TD to either Bo or Preston. What's going on in Kansas City right now?
Well, they have a third receiving threat last week, but
yeah, but they didn't even get the ball to him. You know, they got to do a lot more.
A friend of mine was really. I'm not going to be dramatically upset. I mean, he was upset. He's like, you really think I played Matt Castle for this? I'm like, man, it's you win and lose. I mean, it happens. What are you going to do?
You're going up against a winless team. I mean, come on. You're supposed to be the best team in the West.
You should do some research and you should hit us up, you know, that fan mail. Give us some ideas. Give us something to talk about too, because we're talking directly to you.
That's right. Extreme Fantasy Junkies at gmail.com. Please send in your questions.
You don't know. You got to send us the email. We're open. We're not excluding anybody.
Give us. How about this? This goes out, Calvin. I know you've been hitting us up. You know, we got a few other emails. But how about you give us your top 5 performers, and we'll talk about it on the show. You know, give us your top 5, your bottom 5. And, you know, we'll talk about it. We'll dissect what you think.
That was on the tip of my tongue. Dissect. I'm not even planning on it.
Minds think alike, Mike.
It is. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that was just studs and duds. When we get back, we're gonna go to the waiver wire. Oh boy, let me tell you something. I got something to say about the waiver wire.
Oh, look out.
Mike.
This is the waiver wire. Just to let you know, I am the host, and I usually only jump in when it's necessary, but I actually did go to I went to the bottom of my pile on my waiver wire, and I actually picked up Roy Halou this week. I saw him, he was there. I wanted to take a chance, and you know what? 18 points on my scoreboard. I was like, yes! Another person I saw, who hopefully I better go home and do it after the game, or as soon as possible. Not to trade for him, but if he's available, take him. Reggie Bush. I saw him. I saw him.
Mad Mike, you stole Halou right from under
me. But you can still talk about him. You are more than welcome.
Halou is the first name on my sheet. I am only the host. So now I gotta just pick another one of these names.
No. You're gonna talk about Roy Halou.
No.
You are. Yes, you are.
You summed it up perfectly.
You are gonna talk about him because I am only the host. Talk. Please.
I do want to say that I like Jeff's comparison off camera earlier. He made a comparison between Halou and Marshall Faulk. When was the last time a running back got 15 catches for over 100 yards?
It's been a while.
It's been a long time since that type of production has even come out of the running back position. I think going forward, you know, Halou is a great pickup just to have on your bench if you need depth. If you don't have any running backs, if you were just riddled with injuries, Halou is a good pickup. Another running back that I'll get into detail about, Ben Tate. He had over 100 yards. Him and Foster both had over 100 yards. They both had a TD. 15 touches for 115 yards. So even though Foster's the #1 back out there in Houston, Tate is still getting his fair share of carries. And he's also a very explosive back. As we saw with his 27-yard TD run, he could take it to the house at any given time. So pick him up, you know, if you need a running back, if you're in a desperate situation, which I know a lot of you are, because running back is very thin right now, pick him up and you can just feel comfortable starting him knowing that he's going to get some play and he has the potential to break out for it.
I really just got one name actually that I just want to mention. I mentioned him last week, Laurent Robinson. Obviously, you guys noticed on ESPN today what happened with Miles Austin. If you didn't watch the Cowboys game, great win Cowboys. But Miles Austin has a hamstring injury, 2 to 4 weeks is what's being rumored, which means you got Laurent Robinson, who I'm not going to say he's going to take a whole bulk of the carry, like the receptions from Des Bryant or Jason Witten, but it looks like he's in the game plan somehow, some way. He got you a touchdown this past Sunday. He got you points the Sunday before. If you really need a bye week replacement, which you're going to need, especially for someone like Mike Wallace, I mean, Laurent Robinson's not a bad pickup. The only other name that I'm going to mention as well is because he had actually a decent game, and it looks like Carson Palmer might find him in the game plan, is Denarius Moore from Oakland. Like I said, Darius Hayward-Bay, you weren't there. Great job. Glad I could rely on you and all that. But Denarius Moore is available. I'd say if you need a bye week replacement for a couple of receivers, those are just a couple of guys I would mention to you.
Bitter fantasy sports owner right here.
Yeah, I'm over it now. It comes with every game.
It's a good pickup. I'll leave the humble pie. Pick him up if you need him.
It was really your idea originally, like a couple weeks ago. You mentioned it.
I did. And he fell out of
it.
favor because when you're in a team like the Cowboys, you have a lot of heavyweight receiving options.
Yeah.
But now that the Cowboys are a whole different team with DeMarco Murray,
That's it for the waiver wire. It was a very humble session of the waiver wire, you know, but the way I look at it, humble pie, by the way. Sorry, John.
That's cool.
These guys haven't saved a piece yet for me. They're eating so much humble pie. I haven't even had a slice yet. I have.
Wow.
All of you just eat all the humble pie.
Maybe on the Smack Talk.
I think maybe the smack talk. Or
think
if Tebow has a horrible game next week.
Humble
Tebow
pie.
might have a horrible game next
If
week.
Tebow has a horrible game, I'm gonna bring in a pie and I'm actually gonna eat it.
Anyways.
That's how humble I'm gonna be.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
In all seriousness for myself, man, having a bit of fun. We'll get back, ladies and gentlemen. Start him and sit him. You sit down and go. You know what time this is? Start him and sit him. Mike sees the area. Yo, I said sit. Okay, start him. Go. Let him go, please. Anyways, what's the deal for this week?
Alright, well, I'm about to run off a quick little short list of guys that you need to start. And the first guy is going to be someone that, as you know, we have an infatuation with on this show. Tim Tebow. Hey, he's going up against the Kansas City Chiefs.
I love my mom! Anyways, yeah.
Matt Moore just lit him up for 244 and 3 TDs. Tebow's averaging you 20 points a week fantasy-wise. I expect at least 20, maybe 30 points. A big game on the ground, an average game through the air, which is what he's capable of, obviously. We just saw it against Oakland.
Yeah.
So I expect a big day out of him. Next, another guy on the Broncos, Willis McGahee.
Yeah.
I think you got to ride it out with him right now. He's coming off of a great game, career high. He's been in the league a long time, Mike.
Yeah.
He had a career high this late in his career, 163 yards. That's a lot. 2 TDs in one game for a guy who wasn't supposed to be the starting running back out in Denver.
Yeah.
But now he is. Fred Davis. Me and Jeff, we have a little man crush right here on Fred Davis because the tight end pool is really thin, and you probably have Dallas Clark or Owen Daniels not performing for you. But Fred Davis is going up against the Dolphins this week. They're giving up 265 through the air. They've allowed 14 passing TDs this season. And I think Fred Davis is the #1 target out there in Washington. Maybe Jabbar Gaffney and Holu are fighting for the #2 spot. But Fred Davis is the clear #1. You know, their quarterback isn't that great, but when they do throw the ball, it's usually to Davis, so start him. And Jason Hill, this guy is going to be the sleeper of the week for you guys because he's going up against the Colts. The Colts. Julio Jones, 3 catches, 120 yards, 2 TDs. Jason Hill, what is he going to do? Maybe not the same numbers, but he's going to produce for you. So get him in your starting lineup against the Colts.
You know, he's got to do something. He's got to do something.
And they're playing for Andrew Luck, so they could care less. Jason Hill's going to go off. I'd like to get into the sit-ups.
Sit him.
All right?
Told him to sit down.
Tell them to sit down because they're not going to produce for you. Owen Daniels, man, you know, I had him on my team last season. I had him on my team this season again, and he's been nothing but a big disappointment for me. Without Andre Johnson, like I touched on earlier, his numbers have just gone downhill. In a situation where he's supposed to be the top receiving target, he hasn't performed like it, and he hasn't been performing. So sit him. Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. I know his big game came against the Jets, but with the way he's playing right now, I don't know, maybe he's injured. You know, there's rumors that his toe injury might be more serious.
That actually was, I sat him in one of my leagues. I had to sit him.
That was a good call.
I had to sit him. I read it, and even was one of the warnings was, his toe. It was questioned. So I sat him.
It seems like it's a bigger injury than what the Patriots are letting on, and I know that's not a shock because they don't tell you anything when it comes to injuries. Mendenhall.
Yeah, Rashad.
I know he went up against the tough Ravens D, but I think that was his time for him to really show that he was the same back from last season or a couple of years ago, and he wasn't able to come through against the Ravens.
He didn't perform at his best in this game.
He didn't perform at his best, and he's going up against the Bengals, which have under the radar type defense. It's in the top 5 in every statistical category. That's going to be a good matchup because the Bengals have a lot to prove. Are they for real? If they can beat the Steelers, then I'm going to say they're for real. Last 2 names, Beanie Wells, Marshawn Lynch. Kevin Kolb is injured apparently. I don't know if you could tell because he hasn't been producing. So he might have been healthy, he might have been injured. Who knows? But if he's not going to be healthy, their quarterback is going to be John Skelton. And he's definitely not an elite level quarterback. He might not even be in a tier. He might be like in the basement of the last tier. And if that's the case, if Skelton's going to be the starter, then the Eagles are just going to tee off on Beanie Wells and they're going to shut him down. And then with Marshawn Lynch going up against the Ravens, one of the toughest rush defenses in the league, when Seattle doesn't have a quarterback either, Ravens shut him down. Sit both of them.
Well, love the points, Mike. Always appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, when we get back, we're gonna have a serious special session of smack talk. Hey! Told you. In all seriousness, obviously this is filmed in New England, Boston, Cambridge area, and this section of smack talk, I think being self-critical of oneself, as bad as it is sometimes it is the best wake-up call. And you know, this smack talk session, I really want to smack around the New England Patriots. As much as I love them, I really do, because it's like you can't point the finger at 1 or 2 people. I'm sorry. You know, it's just the way I've felt lately. I haven't said much, you know, we're Patriots fans, but it does come to a point where it's like, listen, people make mistakes once in a while, but it's just been too long since we've stepped back and like, wait a minute. I'm not here to, I'm sick and tired of sugarcoating everything. I get to the bottom of it, I tear it apart slowly, and I'm being all serious about that. I'm a clown. I mean, I don't do any of this. But anyways, once the fire off,
I can definitely start this off. And I'm not going to start it off with this season. I'm not going to start it off with last season. I'm not going to start it off with the season before that either. You can go back to 2007. You could go to 2006, but 2007 was a majestic season where we broke a lot of records. You know, we were almost perfect all season. Regular season was perfect.
We were the dream team.
We were the dream team. Well, this is where I'd like to bring the attention to, because we were the dream team. I'd beg to differ. Brady and Moss were the dream team. Everybody else was just playing their role. And what happened when the New York Giants figured out how to stop Moss and hit Tom Brady? We lost the Super Bowl. That's what happened, because there's no one else who could come through and win the game for the Patriots on the offensive side of the ball. The defense was gassed, and what happened? All last drive, it was Brady forced into Moss, Brady forced into Moss, Brady forced into Moss, and at that point, it's clockwork for the New York Giants to just double, triple team Moss, send a safety all the way back, and you're safe. I'd like to bring it to that point where our offense depended so much on not our offense per se, but our offensive scoring depended so much on one player. And you had Welker, who I believe he had 100 receptions that season. Was he a big time? Was he a reason why the Patriots were winning? No. The reason why the Patriots were winning was Tom Brady wasn't throwing a bunch of interceptions. Tom Brady was throwing a bunch of touchdowns, mostly to Randy Moss. And when you halted the production from Randy Moss, well, I'm going to get away from just that season, but you get the idea. It's too unbalanced to one player. So you know, if you're an elite, supposed elite front office, an elite general manager, elite coach, which I believe Belichick is, look at his resume, you go out and you address those things. But I didn't see Belichick address those things. I didn't see Belichick attempt to go back to his Troy Brown, David Patton, David Givens. I mean, you can go to Christian Fourier. You can go down the list. We had multiple weapons for Tom Brady. You don't have that anymore. What you have now is a predictable offense. You fast forward, nothing's changed for the offense.
Just to add on to what you were saying, Jeff, the problem when your two best options are tight ends is that you can't protect the QB as well as you have in the past. When the Patriots were winning, they had their tight ends for the most part stay in to block. But when your best options are Gronkowski and Hernandez, you have to send them out in routes, you're leaving your offensive line vulnerable to good teams who can blitz. The Steelers, the Cowboys, and now this week with the Giants.
Well, basically, to me, who I personally feel started.
And I just would like to add again. I don't want to hog up this. I'm not sure if it's smack talk. I'm not sure if it's a session where we're all just gonna cry, grown men, over our home team. But I mean, this is definitely going to unfold as this topic goes on. But like Mike said, the blocking. I mean, it's gotten to the point where you need Gronk and Hernandez so bad that when Nate Solder stepped in for Vollmer, when Vollmer went down and outplayed Vollmer. Nate Solder was on his way to a Pro Bowl, and he was shutting. I mean, his first game against Cameron Wake in Miami totally shut him down. He was playing out of his world, out of his mind. Belichick again was a genius for drafting a guy that no one really knew about in the first round, and he was going to be a next stud. But you know what happened? Vollmer came back and he won. He got the job back. Why? Because you need Nate Solder to sometimes play the blocking tight end. It's gone to that point. It's gone to that point where you got to almost play a little patchwork here to make things work. Yeah.
And this definitely isn't a smack talk. This is more of an intervention from Patriots fans to our team. We're telling you what's wrong. You guys need to make the changes. Going into the patchwork, though, another great segue by you, Jeff. You're getting better and better at this every week, by the way. The Patriots secondary. Can you guys name anyone in the secondary now? Chung was injured. McCourty has been underperforming. They have Sergio Brown, who's committing ridiculous penalties. They just picked up some guy named Adams. I don't even know what his first name is. And they have some other guy named Molden. They're relying on people that they just picked up off the street to be their starting DBs. Belichick usually has been great at patchwork teams. Teams that have just a lot of spare parts from other teams. He puts that together and he brings that team to a Super Bowl and he wins championships. He's not doing the same thing this season. The talent level isn't there. There's no proven veterans on the defense that can tell all these young rookies what to do, how to react to certain situations. They're all learning on the job right now. And as a defensive unit, you need someone to step up like a Wilfork or a Mayo when healthy, or even, I don't know, a Hainsworth maybe, or is he too much of a prima donna to do something?
Yeah, I'm
deep.
I'm glad.
You're the talker. I constantly you're the talker.
I know. I didn't want to cut in on what they had to say because I didn't really have much to argue on this because I'm a Pats fan too.
Yeah, you gotta say. You gotta say how you feel.
And actually, this is really interesting. I'm wearing a Red Sox sweatshirt, and the reason it's interesting to me is because this is the point I actually want to bring up. And I love Belichick too, just as much as you do. I think he's one of, at least in this decade, hands down, one of the greatest coaches he's ever played the game, and especially this decade, by hands down. But the point I want to bring up is, besides the fact that I personally think that Belichick's become somewhat complacent, especially when you guys mentioned Taylor Price, and you mentioned the fact that, he picks up guys, but he's not picking up any. Like, for instance, a perfect example is Clay Matthews. And that's a guy, as much as I would have seen Greg Jennings really, actually probably have a great connection with Brady, I think Clay Matthews is one perfect example of Belichick getting complacent and doing what he always does in a draft, which is trading one of his picks. But the problem is, he always manages to trade the pick that actually becomes more beneficial on another team. Now, Mark Ingram, we have to wait and see on that because that's something that happened this year and we're not even sure how he's going to be doing. But the point I want to make about Belichick and the Red Sox, what I'm trying to get to is I just have this funny feeling that should the Patriots go to the playoffs or not go to the playoffs, but should they go to the playoffs and get knocked out in the first or the bye week, which won't happen, but the first round, then I think the same situation might occur where there might be a changing of, coaching and, what we're going to see with the offseason with the Red Sox, which should be interesting. Getting rid of certain players. And I know off camera we were talking about this idea that maybe not now, but in a couple of years they trade Brady. And I don't know if you guys want to intercede with that at this point, but
it's
too early to tell.
Yeah,
I think that's
right. I said not.
Way a little too early.
Yeah. No,
I mean, the panic
don't.
button is definitely here, and everybody's finger is definitely right above it. But I ain't pressing it just yet.
I think next week. And more to the point, I think the week after the next week, these two upcoming games, like Kansas City, a lot of people are going to laugh in my face if they watch this and they hear this, but I think Kansas City is going to be a really, really important game. Because if we lose to Kansas City,
I'm sorry, that's
and
sad.
Miami can blow out Kansas City, I mean, you got to sit there and wonder at this point, all right, Miami is a one-win team. They got the one win off of Kansas City, but I think the Jets game is going to be
the Jets game.
I think the Jets.
I think you got to look at it this way. Personally, I mean the Patriots. I hate to say this, but they have relied more on teams beating themselves than beating teams. That's just the truth.
We're football fans.
I really do want to wrap this up with just one simple point. After all we've said about the Pats, we still got a lot of love for them. We still love Tom Brady. We still really respect Belichick. And we're not giving up hope on the season. Right now, we're just a little worried like everyone else in New England is. So, with that being said.
I just want to finish off one thing like I haven't said enough. Cut me out if you want, John. I might be edited.
The camera
I might just be quiet. But I just want to say that, it comes a point in time where you just got to forget about the last 10 years. You got to take off the rose-colored glasses. The world isn't beautiful in Patriots land right now. You got to see things for what they are. You got to start holding the coach accountable. For a very long time, we've held everybody but the coach and quarterback accountable. I don't want to blame Brady yet. I just feel like he's not being given a chance. I feel like he doesn't have the players and the personality around him. I am going to start putting some of the blame on Belichick. He's bought into his ego.
Lastly, though, watch out for next week when Jeff eats not just one, but 2 humble pies on the show.
Catch us on our YouTube channel, Extreme Fantasy Junkies. You could also catch us. We haven't done it. We have a Twitter account, correct? Right?
Yeah, we have a Twitter.
That's at Extreme Fantasy J.
And we got. Oh my God, we got a Facebook page too.
Extreme
You
Fantasy
can like
Junkies.
us.
You can like us on Facebook.
And we're gonna have business cards.
Yeah, we're actually gonna have business cards soon.